Before the war, before the medals, and before the long years of service to his country, James Edwin Jim Graham was simply a young man from the hills of Kentucky. Jim first met Wanda Gay Fitzgerald at her grandfather's country store near Burkesville, Kentucky. The store was the kind of place that served as the center of rural life, neighbors stopping in, stories being shared, and families building their futures. Jim had a friend named David Sharp, and through him he began coming by the store more often. Wanda's mother, Robbie Ferguson, noticed something right away. Jim seemed to find more and more reasons to stop by. Before long, it became clear that he wasn't just coming for groceries. He was coming to see Wanda. That was the beginning of a partnership that would last the rest of their lives. While still in high school, Jim joined the Army Reserves, already showing a sense of duty that would shape his future. After graduation, he worked a variety of odd jobs around Cumberland County, doing whatever work he could. While Wanda finished school, during that time he even drove a school bus, a small-town job that reflected the simple, hard-working life he was building. On March 8, 1958, Jim and Wanda were married. Not long after, Jim entered active duty in the United States Army at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Like many young couples of that generation, their life together would follow the path of military service. In 1960, the Army sent them to the Panama Canal Zone, where they would live until 1963. Those were tense years in world history. During their time there, the Cuban Missile Crisis brought the United States and the Soviet Union to the brink of nuclear war. Military families in Panama were instructed to be prepared to evacuate at a moment's notice with only a single bag of belongings. Families gathered around radios, listening to Armed Forces radio, waiting to hear what might happen next. When Jim returned to Fort Knox, the soldiers who worked with him recognized something in him. They told him he had the leadership qualities to become an officer and encouraged him to apply for officer candidate school. Jim talked it over with Wanda. She agreed with him. He went to officer candidate school at Fort Benning, Georgia, where he trained to become an Army officer when he graduated. He did so as the top graduate of his class, a sign of the leadership ability that others had already seen in him. Soon afterward, the war in Vietnam escalated, and Jim would be called to serve there. Over the course of the war, he would complete 2 tours in Vietnam, separated by only a few months. During one intense combat engagement, Jim entered an area under heavy enemy fire to rescue wounded soldiers. One by one, he carried 6 wounded men out of the kill zone, refusing to leave them behind. While doing so, he himself was struck in the legs by shrapnel, but he continued the rescue until the men were safe. The actions he took that day would become part of a military career marked by courage, leadership, and service. But like many veterans of his generation, Jim Graham rarely spoke about those moments himself. When Jim Graham went to Vietnam with the 2nd Battalion, 12th Cavalry Regiment of the 1st Cavalry Division, he entered one of the most demanding combat environments American soldiers had ever faced. The 1st Cavalry Division was one of the most heavily engaged units in the Vietnam War. Their soldiers were often inserted directly into combat by helicopter, fighting in dense jungle terrain where danger could come from any direction. It was in that environment that Jim Graham proved the kind of officer he was during his service in Vietnam. He was awarded 2 Silver Stars, one of the highest decorations for gallantry in combat. The Silver Star is given only to soldiers who demonstrate extraordinary heroism while facing enemy forces. Receiving one is rare. Receiving 2 places a soldier among a very small number of men who repeatedly showed exceptional courage under fire. He was also awarded 2 Bronze Stars, recognizing meritorious service and acts of bravery during combat operations. And he received 2 Purple Hearts, meaning he was wounded twice by enemy action while serving his country. Taken together, these decorations tell a powerful story. They show a man who not only served, but who repeatedly placed himself in harm's way for the mission and for the soldiers under his command. But like many veterans of that generation, Jim Graham rarely spoke about the details. The men who served beside him would have understood exactly what those medals meant. They knew the cost of earning them. They knew the danger behind every mission, every patrol, and every moment when leadership and courage could mean the difference between life and death. For soldiers of the 1st Cavalry Division, the bond between brothers in combat was unbreakable. And officers like Jim Graham carried a heavy responsibility: the lives of the men they led.
His decorations are more than pieces of metal on a uniform. They are reminders of the battles fought, the men who stood beside him, and the sacrifices made in the jungles of Vietnam. They are the marks of a man who did not seek glory, but who answered the call when it mattered most.